She came into the emergency department with a broken wrist and a black eye. And when the doctor asked her what had happened, she said, "Nothing." He asked again. She said, "I don't know, I just went down." She was 76, and that answer, "nothing," is the most common answer older adults give when they are asked what caused their fall. Not a dramatic slip, not a stumble on ice, nothing. Now here's what I have learned in 20 years of asking that question. There is almost always a something. The person simply did not see it because it had been in their house for 11 years and had become invisible to them. So today I'm going to give you 5 ordinary household items that send older adults to emergency departments in enormous numbers. Every one of them is in most homes watching this video. Every one of them has real national injury data behind it. And one of them, I promise you, you have never once thought of as dangerous because you put it on your face every morning. Before I start, tell me in the comments where you are listening from. Just the town or the state or the country. I read everyone and I like knowing who is out there. Let me start with the most common one. Item number 1 is the rug. Researchers at the Centers for Disease Control analyzed 8 years of National Emergency Department data, specifically looking at falls involving rugs and carpets. Here is what they found. Roughly 38,000 adults aged 65 and over were treated in American emergency departments every year for falls associated with rugs and carpets. Nearly 3/4 of those happened at home, and 80% of the injured were women. Now, the useful part of that study is not the total. It is the detail about where and how. The researchers identified the specific circumstances that came up again and again. Falls at the transition between carpet and a hard floor. Falls on wet carpet or rugs. And falls while hurrying to the bathroom. I want to draw your attention to the first one because it is the one nobody expects. The danger is not the middle of the rug. It is the edge. It is the half-inch step up or down where the carpet meets the tile or where a rug sits on top of hardwood. Your walking pattern changes with age. You lift your feet a little less and your stride shortens. Doctors measure this as reduced toe clearance. So a lip that your foot cleared easily at 50 catches the front of your shoe at 78. And you do not trip in the middle of a room. You trip at the boundary. Now, the second finding from that study is the most striking, and it connects to a video I made recently. Among falls that happened in the home, the most common single location was the bathroom at nearly 36%. So a wet bath mat on a hard floor, approached in a hurry at 3 in the morning, is the highest risk rug in your house by a considerable margin. Here is what to do, and it is not complicated. Every loose rug in your home either gets removed or gets secured properly with double-sided rug tape or a non-slip underlay that grips both the rug and the floor. Not a rubber mat that has curled up at the corners. Those are worse than nothing because a curled corner is a hook. And if a rug is in a doorway, on a stair landing, or at the top or bottom of stairs, my honest advice is simply to take it up. There is no way to make those safe enough to be worth it. Now, do something for me before I move on. Pause for a moment and count the loose rugs in your home. Not carpeted rooms, loose rugs and mats that could slide or curl. Put that number in the comments. I would like to see the range, and I suspect a few of you are going to be surprised when you actually count. Item number 2 is the step stool, or far more often, the thing being used instead of a step stool. A kitchen chair, a dining chair, the edge of the bathtub, an upturned bucket. Here is why this one causes such serious injuries. When you fall from standing height, you fall about 3 feet, and you have a fraction of a second to react. When you fall from a chair or a stool, you are already 3 feet up before you start, and you fall 6 or 7 feet, and you land on a hard floor with no time to protect yourself at all. The injuries are correspondingly worse: head injuries, hip fractures, and spinal fractures rather than a bruised knee. And here is the psychology that makes it happen. Nobody climbs on a chair for something important. They climb up for a serving dish they use twice a year, or a light bulb, or a box of Christmas decorations. It is always a small task. The reasoning is always the same, which is that it will only take a second. So here is the rule I give my patients, and it is a firm one. If you are over 70, do not stand on anything. Not a chair, not a stool, not a step. Instead, do two things. First, spend an afternoon moving everything you use regularly down to between waist and shoulder height. Everything above shoulder height should be things you do not need or things somebody else fetches. Second, buy a grabber tool. They cost very little, they reach the top shelf, and they are one of the highest value objects an older adult can own. And for the light bulbs in the high cupboards, this is what family is for. I know that asking feels like a small defeat, but asking your son to change a light bulb takes him 4 minutes. A hip fracture takes everybody's next 6 months. Item number 3 is the pet. And I want to be very careful how I say this because I am not about to tell anyone to give up their dog. The health benefits of pet ownership in older adults are real. And the companionship matters enormously, particularly for people living alone. But the data here is genuinely striking, and almost nobody knows it. The Centers for Disease Control examined National Emergency Department data and estimated that about 86,000 fall injuries associated with dogs and cats occur in the United States every year. Dogs account for around 88% of them. Women are more than twice as likely as men to end up in an emergency department from a pet-related fall. And here is the number that matters most for this audience. Fracture rates were highest in people aged 75 to 84. The most common injury overall was a fracture, at around 30%. Now, how does it actually happen? The study looked at the circumstances. For cats, about 2/3 of the falls were simply tripping over the animal. For dogs, the pattern splits between tripping over them and being pulled. The leash is a genuinely underappreciated hazard. A dog that lunges after a squirrel transmits a sudden sideways force to a person whose balance recovery is already slower than it used to be. And it happens without any warning at all. So here is what actually helps, none of which involves rehoming anybody. Do not walk a strong or unpredictable dog on a hand-wrapped leash. If the leash is looped around your wrist or fingers, you cannot let go, and you go down with it. Consider a waist leash, or, honestly, consider whether a family member should do the walks. Keep pet bowls and toys out of walkways and never in doorways. Put a collar with a bell on a cat, because cats are the ones who appear underfoot silently. And be particularly careful at the door, because that is where dogs get excited and where people are distracted. Now, while I am here, if you have a pet, tell me their name in the comments. I would genuinely like to know, and I suspect the comment section on this video is going to be lovely. Item number 4 is the slipper, specifically the backless slipper, and its cousin, the sock on a hardwood floor. Here is the problem with a backless slipper. Your foot has to grip it to keep it on. That means your toes curl slightly with every step, which subtly changes your gait, and it means the slipper can slide off, catch on a threshold, or shift underneath you. Loose, worn-out slippers with flattened soles are worse still because the sole no longer grips and the heel no longer supports. And socks alone on a hard floor or a staircase have almost no friction at all. Now, the honest research picture here is mixed, and I will tell you why. Some studies have found that walking barefoot or in socks is associated with higher fall risk than wearing shoes. There is also an argument made by some researchers that thin-soled footwear improves the sensory feedback from the soles of your feet. So I am not going to pretend the evidence is entirely settled. What is widely agreed is this: the safest indoor footwear has a back or a strap that holds it on, a sole that grips, a low heel, and a fit that is snug rather than loose. There are proper indoor shoes made exactly to that description. They are not glamorous. They work. And if you take one thing from this section, make it this: do not go up or down stairs in socks. Item number 5 is the one I promised you. It is on your face right now, quite possibly. Your glasses. Specifically, bifocals and progressive lenses. Let me explain why, because when you understand the mechanism, it becomes obvious. A progressive lens has your distance prescription at the top and your reading prescription at the bottom. That is a sensible design for reading a book and then looking up at the television. Now think about what you do when you walk down a staircase. You look down, which means you are looking at the steps through the reading portion of the lens. The reading portion is not designed for a target several feet away, so the edge of the step is blurred, and it may also be slightly displaced because that part of the lens bends light differently. At the exact moment you most need to judge the precise depth and edge of a step, your glasses are giving you the least reliable image you will get all day. Research in older adults has linked multifocal glasses to a higher rate of falls, particularly outside the home and particularly on stairs. Now, what to do about it? And this is a practical suggestion rather than a demand. Many people find that having a second pair of single vision distance glasses used for walking outdoors and on stairs makes a noticeable difference. Some people simply learn to tilt their head down rather than their eyes, so they are looking through the top of the lens at the steps. That takes practice, but it costs nothing. And this is a worthwhile conversation with your optometrist, who will have seen the question before. There is also a broader point here. If you have recently changed to a new prescription or had cataract surgery, your brain needs time to recalibrate. That adjustment period is a higher risk window, and it is worth being deliberately careful for a few weeks. Now let me pull all 5 together and be honest about something. These 5 items are the visible causes. Removing every rug in your house is worth doing, and it will not make you fall-proof, because most falls in older adults are not caused by the hazard alone. They are caused by the hazard plus something about the person that day. Blood pressure that dropped when they stood up, a new sleeping tablet, poor lighting, legs that have quietly weakened over 3 years, balance that has slipped without anybody testing it. The rug is what the emergency department writes down. It is rarely the whole story. So, alongside removing the 5 items, I would ask you to do 3 things that matter at least as much. Ask your doctor or pharmacist to review your medications specifically for anything that causes drowsiness or lowers your blood pressure on standing. Ask them to measure your blood pressure lying down and then standing, which almost never happens unless you request it. And do some form of strength and balance work, because that is the single intervention with the best evidence behind it. And Tai Chi in particular has remarkable data for fall prevention in this age group. 3 honest statements before I close. The injury figures I quoted come from emergency department records, so they capture the falls serious enough to attend hospital and miss the many that are not. Association in this data does not always mean the item caused the fall. And this video is education, not medical advice. I am a physician, but I'm not your physician. Now, the things that need attention rather than a hardware fix. If you have fallen in the past year, even once, even if you got straight back up and told nobody, please mention it at your next appointment. Falls predict falls, and there are structured assessments that genuinely reduce the next one. If you feel lightheaded or gray when you stand, that is usually correctable. If you have actually blacked out, that needs proper assessment, because some causes are cardiac. If you hit your head, and particularly if you take a blood thinner, that needs same-day assessment, even if you feel completely fine afterwards, because bleeding inside the skull can develop slowly over hours or days. And if you have started avoiding stairs or holding furniture as you move around a room, that is your body telling you something before it tells you the hard way. Let me finish with the woman I started with. When she was asked again, a few days later, by someone who took the time, it turned out it was not nothing. She had got up in the night, put on her backless slippers, walked down the hall, and caught the toe of one slipper on the metal strip where the hall carpet meets the kitchen tile. Every single element of that sentence is on the list I just gave you. The slipper, the transition strip, the nighttime trip to the bathroom, the darkness. She had walked over that strip perhaps 40,000 times in the 22 years she had lived in that house. And that is exactly the point. The dangerous things in your home are not the ones that look dangerous. They are the ones that have been there so long you have stopped seeing them. So here is what I would like you to do when this video finishes. Walk through your own home slowly and look at it as though you have never been there before. Look at the floor, not the room. Look at the edges, the thresholds, the corners of rugs, the cords, the places where one surface becomes another. You will find 2 or 3 things in about 10 minutes. Tell me in the comments which of the 5 you are going to deal with first. And tell me your pet's name. I meant that. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.